Hi, I'm here with Rick Carsley, who's going to talk to us about his perspectives on talent acquisition today. Rick, first of all, thanks very much for joining me. And could you just give us a quick introduction? Like, tell us quickly about your career. How did you get into it? How did you get into recruitment? And what are you doing today?
Sure. I got into recruitment by mistake, just like anyone else you normally talk to. I've told this story before, but I dialed for dollars in a mortgage call center right after undergrad. There was a pink flyer offering a certain dollar amount if you hired more salespeople. I was just a kid trying to pay off student loans. I hired like 19 loan officers over 60 days, not really realizing that that was going to be a career. Then pretty soon after, someone wanted me to kind of pay to do that exclusively. Throughout the last 15 years, I've gotten to work for some phenomenal organizations, leading recruitment for Farmers Insurance, for IKEA. And now currently I am the Vice President of Talent Acquisition for LoanCare, headquartered back in Virginia Beach.
Great. So tell us about LoanCare. How many sort of hires do you make? What are the types of people you're making? Have you got a team? What does that look like? And how does it work?
Sure. So LoanCare is a mortgage sub-servicer, one of the largest in the United States. The majority of our hires are remote-based customer service and loan counselor hires. It's no secret that the mortgage industry has been fairly tumultuous, kind of post-COVID, current COVID, pre-COVID, whatever COVID you want to talk about.
Yeah.
The breakdown of our team is I have a couple senior leaders that I've worked with previously at IKEA and Freedom that luckily still continue to want to work with me when we make these moves. And we hire per annum right around 1,000 coworkers this year.
Great. Okay. So I'm really interested to know, I guess, like, what do you think are the most important things that we need to be thinking about in recruitment today, with a spotlight, first of all, thinking about the current environment, which is a lot of people are not looking for jobs, or not applying for jobs. There seems to be a candidate shortage. There's it's hard to get a shortlist together, all that kind of thing.
Right.
How do you combat this? How do you think about it?
It's interesting because I keep hearing about candidate shortages, and I think it's that imperfect process in which people actually advert their positions. I did a pilot for bringing HireView in, and I collected over 7 days 1,200 resumes at a cost of 42 cents a resume. I'm not having a problem finding names, getting those people to participate in the process, just because anytime you're hiring for any individual contributor role, the subjective, hey, join a Zoom meeting, I'm going to ask you 20-30 questions, and it's just like that old adage, everyone thinks they're a great driver, right? Well, everyone thinks they're a greater judge of talent. So what does your coin flip, even you with your nice mustache, mean any better than my coin flip? Yeah. So, where I've always gone is you need to assess candidates, not only their participation rate, but also their aptitude and how much they're going to want to go along in the process. So a candidate applies into our world. They're greeted with, their 7-question pre-recorded video setup. There's an introduction video from my CEO. Then they meet the recruiter. They take their 7 questions, then they move on to one of 3 assessments, depending on their particular role. We then take both of those pieces of data, which we obviously continue to collect and eventually gauge against their actual attendance rate at work, how good of a coworker, their quality scores, overall, retention, because you're just continuing to kind of add the data. Our hires for high volume is made based on that formula and that model, and ultimately a recruiter decision. I do not have candidates that interview with actual hiring managers.
Is this a formula that you created in previous organizations, or you brought to the organization, or was it already here when you joined a few weeks back?
I stole it from the Hilton. In 2011, I saw a presentation where they broke down, the hire view. And I saw it and I'm like, I don't know why I don't have this. And from there, it's just kind of, people always want to do things the same way. And especially when you're talking about, roles that people tend to stay in. When you think about a contact center, contact center people have this, like they're rough or something, and they've been through the wars and they've seen, 70 to 100% attrition rates. So anytime you're bringing something to them, you really need to not tell them about how great it is and how, oh no, I have a applied mathematics degree and this is why this works. They don't care about that. You got to talk to them about what is actually an issue for them. Most of them think that their hiring managers could do better, but to them, they're like, oh, give them interview training. That's not going to do anything. I mean, it's a nice thought, and any kind of, time spent to a gainful experience is always a positive. So it's not like it's worthless, but it's not going to change what they're doing. So I've, by working for some of those really big brands, you have, if you make, 5 to 18,000 hires a year, like some of those very large programs I built, you have the ability to try some things, not only from a budgetary perspective, but to see what works. And, everyone has been trying to play around with assessments forever, but some of those assessments are like Criteria Corp or that IBM thing where it's like, 20 multiple choice questions, or the fallacy of the Wonderlic, all that kind of stuff, right? Actually have people do something that is going to mimic what they're going to do in the job. That's how you're, every single job ever. And this is a bad college football reference, but it's the can do, the will do, and the fit, right? Can someone do their job? Well, in recruiting, I can say that with 100% certainty if I am assessing them on a game that they play that almost mimics our environment. Will they do the job? I have no clue. I can tell you based on the way that they answered my behavioral based interview questions, if they told the truth, maybe 50%. The fit is up to the individual. So that's when it really becomes like something that I made a mistake earlier in my career is I didn't partner enough with like the training in the organization. That is really that group that you need to be solid. You need to be able to have open conversations with them. Like, hey, this is our next batch of 20 coworkers. These are the people that are top tier for me. And our data and our scoring shows all of that. These are the people that struggled in this. I feel like the emotional intelligence is low for this batch. And then just speak openly, because back years ago, I'd be like, well, they got their 20. They're not our problem anymore. And like, you just can't hire like that. You can't build a strong organization like that. But to answer your question more succinctly, a whole lot of trial and error. Anybody in this market in recruiting that says that they know what they're doing is lying. It's just, we're trying, as soon as something works, change it, because it's about to stop working.
You're reminding me that if you keep doing the same thing over and over, then you're never going to get any better. And, I do think there's a lot of people in recruitment leader roles who, I'm 44, I started in recruitment in 1999. There's probably a lot of people around about my age that are like leading teams in agencies and in-house and things like that, who learned everything in 1999 and 2000 and 2001 and haven't realized that everything's changed and the world's changed. So like, I reckon that applies to about 75%. There's maybe only 25% who are like you, who are like, we need to keep trying different things and seeing what works and what doesn't. One thing that
honestly, if I can interrupt you real quick, that's how Career Builder continued to stay in business. Because you had people that weren't actually gauging the effectiveness of the tool and how many resumes they're actually getting, what their actual cost per hire is. And they would come through and the renewal would come and be like, oh, well, I already have 200 budgeted. So
Yeah.
it'll be a bigger issue. My boss won't let me replace it. And then it's the stagnant nature. You know, everywhere you go, if you don't come with, you know, someone to control your budget and someone to control your tech, you're going to just go in there and start throwing punches at the wind. And I'm too old for that now.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that. And that applies to quite a lot of job boards. It applies to quite a lot of applicant tracking systems as well.
Right.
Because people they don't look up and go, what else is out there? They just go, this is what I use. This is how we use it. And these crappy results I'm getting are what's normal in recruitment. And it's not, and they just haven't even noticed.
The biggest thing that when I talk to other peers of mine, you know, they'll tell me like, oh, I use Taleo and I hate it. And like and because of that, you know, the finance needs these reporting, the business needs this reporting. And then all I really do is mess around in Excel and Tableau all day to get this reporting. Yeah. And so then it became so much work. Then I hired somebody. I paid them 90 grand to do these reports. Yeah. Why don't you go to your boss and say, hey, iSIMS is only 40 grand. Can we give it a whirl? Yeah. You know, like it's a lot easier people are so scared to attack the problem. But most of the time when I go into an organization, like if you don't tell them that the problem is the system, it's, you know, well, everyone says the problem's the system. And you're like, no, I'm really telling you the problem is the system. Let's change it. That will knock out 50 of our issues. And I can give you that run where in 6 months we'll be here. In 12 months, we be here. In 18 months, we'll be here. But it takes a lot to go through that process. And you have to know what you're talking about. And you have to constantly work with vendors you trust. That is like the biggest key too, you know? Yeah. And I think a lot of people do, they automatically, when they've got a roadblock ahead of them or they've got something that's a bit of a pain, they automatically think, I need humans to come and fix this, rather than I need to change the process or change the technology, because they don't necessarily know. And that brings me on to the question about, it sounds like when you described your process, it sounds like you've removed a lot of steps that you would expect to be traditional recruitment steps, like the hiring manager involvement in it. Do you believe that we're getting towards more of a kind of almost recruiterless type of world? And do you think that that's a good thing? And do you think that there's problems with that? And what's your thoughts about that? The tough part about that is, you know, it's the same way when someone talks to you about, you know, how are you going to reduce attrition? Yeah. They're like, well, if I reduce attrition, do you really then need me to replace said attrition? Recruiters will always be a vibrant part of this process. Just because, you know, let's say every organization has about 80% of the roles that could go through a well-documented and automated process. But there's still that whole big difference of the value of someone who knows people. And who knows how to find people. And, you know, like I can program a system to send out, you know, the same amount of LinkedIn messages that you can have 30 people send. It's not that hard. But I can't have them respond intelligently. I can't have them, you know, have that needed conversation. You know, as assessment tools get better and more people buy in, companies just get scared. If I go to, and this is not my company at all, because we're the complete opposite, but a company I worked for before, I could go all day long and say, hey, I need $70,000 a year recruiters. And it was like, okay, hire more. And if I said I needed half that same money to invest in either a new source of resumes or a different way to assess talent, it's like I slapped him in the face. So you really need to educate your, you know, I feel like so many recruiters or recruiting leaders, like they interview with the CHRO, who's probably not a money person. They interview with like their biggest client customer, because the reason that the last person left the job is because, you know, Steve in call center is the meanest guy in the world and sends us all these, you know, terrible emails. And so they're hiring just for that solution of get rid of Steve I don't want Steve to call me anymore.
Yeah.
There's really not a Steve. I forget his name.
Yeah.
And, improve our retention. And like, those are things that a recruiter really can't do.
Yeah.
So you're like, okay, do you really want me to come in and fix it? Because I can fix it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So a lot of people just take the wrong job, I think, is what really happens in recruiting endlessly.
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I do agree with the concept of hiring managers having less of a role in it. We're coming to the end of this session, but I want to just ask one final question, which is like, there will be quite a lot of people who watch this who are sort of early mid-career recruiters. They might want to aspire to be a talent acquisition leader like you in the future. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to somebody that's like, 5 years into their career, they want to go ahead, run teams and stuff like that? What's the one piece of advice you'd give them?
Get a real job. You know what? Here's the thing about recruiting. You really do have to have some sort of driving passion behind finding people work. For me, it was always about trying to make a process that was fair for everyone.
Yeah.
Growing up where I grew up, the public education system in the United States lets down a whole lot of the candidate base that you end up hiring.
Yeah.
And it would be naive to say that there isn't so much bias in hiring process.
Yeah.
So that has always been my biggest drive, is to make sure that everybody has an opportunity, and it's a fair opportunity, regardless of, demographic, regardless of race, regardless of location. That has always been my driving thing. Where I see a lot of people, they're recruiters for a couple of years, they become a senior recruiter, they become a manager, and you talk to them and they hate recruiting. Because recruiting in their world is someone gave them a rec, they posted that advert on LinkedIn or Talent or Indeed. It's funny, that's the first time I've ever not mentioned them first. And then like the whole part of it is a negative experience. It's the candidates that wouldn't call them back. It's the offer that came in too low. It's the difficult hiring manager. None of that creates a passion. That just creates the job that you're going to have to go to.
Yeah.
But if you actually want to become a student of recruitment, you've got to listen to, the podcasts. You've got to try out the tech. You've got to do the demos. Every demo that comes through that has that free trial, do the free trial, figure it out. This is a great job, and you really do get to affect so many lives. And that's always what's kept me going. So just make sure that the passion's there. And, the work or the money or the accolades or whatever, all that stuff just kind of follows people that work hard.
Yeah. Brilliant. Rick Carsley, thanks very much for joining me today. It's been really great to hear your perspectives.
Thanks a lot, Adam. Always a good time.